Let's talk about Ozempic.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that because I know that is, man, that took over. Like, I don't know if you can't go anywhere without hearing about Ozempic. Ozempic, does that fall into the peptide world?
Yes. So
Okay.
Ozempic is also a peptide. It is a GLP inhibitor. So it's kind of interesting because Ozempic is formally FDA approved, but basically for diabetes. So the drug was invented for patients with type 2 diabetes. When they were doing the studies on the drug and everything, they started realizing, like, oh my God, all these people are losing weight.
Yeah.
Um, and it acts on that ghrelin receptor that we were kind of, talking about, but they modulated it to suppress your appetite by acting on the ghrelin receptor, but without increasing your insulin. So they were
Mhm.
kind of able to formulate it like that. And then the other thing that they noticed is, holy cow, like people are their blood glucose is improving, but they're all saying across the board that they don't have an appetite. And then all of them started losing
Gotcha.
weight, which in
Yeah.
terms, if you're a type 2 diabetic, most type 2, not all, but a
Yeah.
lot of them are a little bit on the more heavy
Okay.
side.
Yep.
And so they started, really kind of correlating to that. Um, then with them losing weight, what happened? Well, their cholesterol numbers improved, their
Yep.
blood pressure improved, all of
Yep.
these things. So it was really this kind of cascade that happened. Um,
Hmm.
so the thing about Ozempic is I do tons and tons and tons with the weight loss. So there's a couple ways you have to think about it. So Ozempic is the brand name.
Hmm.
The generic name is semaglutide.
Hmm.
So Ozempic is patented. So Ozempic is patented, meaning that I cannot go tell people that I can give them Ozempic because only patients with a hemoglobin A1C of around 6.6 to 6.8, it's different in some states,
Hmm.
can get Ozempic and have it covered by their insurance.
Insurance. Yeah.
So what has happened is everybody wants this, and these patients that want it are not diabetics. And so that's a whole nother thing that we can talk about. But um, they're like, well, how do I get it? Well, they can't get it. So what they do is they go through these compounding pharmacies. Now, again, because it's not really truly um, made, the FDA did not approve it specifically for weight loss yet. Well, they did approve Ozempic, but like another one is like trizepatide, and that one hits both of your receptors. So that's a GLP receptor, but it hits both of them. So technically, it's supposed to work faster and basically be doable as strong as Ozempic and everything. But anyway, I got sidetracked. Sorry.
Oh, no, no,
Anyway,
no.
but that kind of has cascaded into this, epidemic people are talking about people getting it. Now, it's totally safe if you get it from, again, a reputable person, a reputable pharmacy. And the reason why compounding pharmacies are able to do this legally right now is they can't infringe on the patent. So they can't say, I'm giving you Ozempic, and
Yeah.
they can't infringe on Mounjaro's patent. So they can't say, I'm giving you Mounjaro. The other two things in those patents are the auto injector pens.
Oh, yeah.
That's a patent, so that cannot be infringed on. So you're hearing about people getting sued because they're advertising that they're giving you Ozempic or they're giving you Mounjaro, and then they're coming up with their own auto injector pens, and then that infringes on the patent. So it's kind of like confusing when people are
Yeah.
like, how do you get it? How do you get it? Well, I'm not giving you Ozempic, I'm giving you semaglutide,
Hmm.
which is the generic name of it. And it's in a vial that you have to draw up. The same way that you draw up your CJC 1295 is the same way that you're going to draw up your Ozempic. And it's
Okay.
dosed in units, or not Ozempic, semaglutide, sorry.
Yeah.
Um, it's going to be, dosed that way. And same thing with the Mounjaro. Um, the other interesting thing is people are like, well, are these compounding pharmacies regulated? Yes and no. So
Mm,
peptides like the CJC, ipamorelin, ibutamoren, all of those that we talked about, and we haven't talked about like BPC 157, all of those are not regulated right now.
mhm.
But in times of supply and demand, compounding pharmacies have approval and have FDA regulations they have to meet to give you semaglutide and trizepatide. So it's interesting. And I called our pharmacist because I was concerned about this. And I was like, okay, well, how do I know the product you're giving me and my patients isn't fake? And they basically were like, because we have to meet FDA criteria for this, and we have to not infringe on the patent. So they are not going to give auto injector pens. They're not going to market it as Ozempic, and stuff like that. So they do have to be met. But that being said, those are the large compounding pharmacies that you have, like Olympia, you've got Empower, you've got Hollandale, you've got all of those. Those are the big ones. Where
Mhm.
patients are getting into trouble are if they're going to like smaller mom and pop med spas, people who are, your local pharmacy down the street that's like, I'm going to figure out, how to compound it, because it's basically this chain of amino acids.
Mhm.
So there is a bunch of trial, and error,
Yeah,
or not trial and error. There is a bunch of non-regulated things that people can do, and they can, patent it. But if you go through a big pharmacy, you're going to have a very, very low likelihood of that happening, because the pharmacies have to be in guidance with the FDA.
gotcha. Okay. Um, and so with the Ozempic slash semaglutide, that world, well, one, and correct me if I'm wrong, usually like a drug has to be on the market for about 7 years before it can be allowed to get the generic, right? Something
I
like that.
I believe I'm not sure
Okay.
as far as that, but to be officially like FDA approved, it's an extremely lengthy process
Mm,
to do that. So they have been working on this for a long time to get the actual Ozempic approved. But I actually don't know off the top of my
okay.
head how long it has to be for the brand or generic. I'm not sure.
Okay. Because I was about to say, man, uh, I hadn't heard of Ozempic for a 7 year period. I was like,
Yeah,
Ozempic seems fairly new, like a few years, if
it
that.
is. It
Yeah.
is. But I mean, there's so many things that are in trials for so
Yeah.
long. You just don't hear about them.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's different criteria when they're doing the research. Like if they find like groundbreaking evidence about these like clinical trials, they can push them through.
Gotcha.